The following is a presentation of the Force Center podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is the Force Center podcast feed, and this particular episode of the Force Center podcast feed is the Mandalorian Report.
Yes. No, yes. Have to be
I like indecisive Teen Grogu there. Is not sure what he wants. Yes, no. Curious. A few more buttons on that would be great if it ever gets rebuilt. One of the many things we can talk about. Is that it for the IG-12 talking board for Din Grogu? We will find out. We are excited to be here. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw. The person saying yes, no is, as we're recording, a birthday fellow, Ken Napzok. How's your birthday going, Ken?
It's full of work, and that is kind of how it's always been for me. It's good. It's just one, I don't know about you, Joseph. I'm not one of those people that the older you get, I get more grumpy about birthdays. I actually appreciate them more. And I appreciate the people around me, trying to do something this weekend with people close to me. But there's also this like, hey, you get up, head down, put your sweatpants on and get to work. And it's okay for me too. So
I have definitely had sweatpants birthdays. I also like the excuse to do something I like. So I hope that you are going to enjoy doing this and have a good sweatpants birthday.
Yes.
Yeah, this is an exciting episode to talk about. I think there is so much to discuss about Chapter 24, The Return. But before we dive in, we do want to do a quick plug. We have been letting people know that we're putting more effort into our Patreon. We have been reaping the rewards of that. A lot more people joining the community. Want to just quickly mention some of the things going on our Patreon. One of the big things is everybody gets access to the Discord. So if you want a place to discuss Star Wars that is safe, that you can disagree, but everybody will be friendly and polite about the discussion about what they like and what they don't like and why, and celebratory and investigatory at the same time, check out the Discord on our Patreon. We also have a couple specific things coming up. Our Indiana Jones and the Perilous Podcasts, that is rolling on in our next episode. Our discussion of Raiders of the Lost Ark will be out on Monday, May 1st, exclusive to Patreons for the next couple of months. Exclusive to patrons for the next couple of months. And this Friday, we are doing a live stream for patrons only. We are ranking our favorite scenes of the sequel trilogy. That is happening this Friday, April 21st at 4 p.m. Pacific. We are very close to a big goal in which Jennifer Landa will do a new YouTube series that's kind of NPR meets Star Wars, looking into some interesting things about Star Wars. If you're interested in any of that, check it out at patreon.com/forcecenter. Any other thoughts on that, Ken?
Well, first of all, thank you for doing the heavy lift on that promo there and a bang-up job. I understand the sliding S's on words, too, sometimes when you're rolling. No, great stuff. And one thing, I'm very excited. The Indiana Jones series is just great, and we're going to get into our second episode. I thought we're recording it soon, and it's Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I had this thought this week. I was like, crap, I got to watch Raiders this weekend. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. I get to watch Raiders this weekend for work. Wow, that's amazing. So excited to do that. Also, a while ago, Joseph and I have recorded a kind of a one-shot episode of kind of our thoughts on, why we love and celebrate Star Wars and what it means to us. And that episode's up there for all of you, too. And I want to highlight that as well. If you haven't had a chance to listen to it, it's one of my most favorite things we recorded here at Force Center. So it's up there as well.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing those details. And thank you all for joining us, patrons, or if you'd like to be called Patreons, we can do that too. We'll throw up a poll. Anyway, let's get into this discussion of The Mandalorian. We are talking about the final episode of season 3. It is chapter 24, The Return, written by Jon Favreau, directed by Rick Famuyiwa. About 35 minutes of action-packed storytelling. We always talk about our prep, how we actually experienced viewing it for the first time. I think it really affects how we watch things, the mood we're in, the space we're in, the people we're with, the action figures we're with. And we also always want to center the fact that we like to do deep dive analysis, but we're also just fans, always fans. So, Ken, how did you watch this episode?
I did watch it at midnight. Well, about 11:50 my time. They snuck it up there early as always, but it was a struggle to get there. Still adjusting from travel, some sickness, and just not back to normal. And I had to really look at the clock and be like, dig in, and I'm going to do it. I did it by a little. I was going to do I was even going to do like a live stream. Like, let me do a live stream, like a countdown to the finale. I bet a lot of people will tune in. That'd be fun. Put it on my YouTube channel. Maybe play some Fortnite while I do it. And I just was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I quietly played Fortnite by myself and our pal Ken Plume. And then it was time to watch the show. And I made it. And once it hit, the music hit, I was excited and happy to get there.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It was I am physically and emotionally rough around the edges after the absolute wonder of our trip to the UK and Star Wars Celebration. But I really wanted to enjoy this. So I took, I would say, 3 naps throughout the day. 2 of them, physical, and one of them like mental, like almost meditation. Be like, all right, center yourself, because I wanted to have a really great midnight experience, and I did. I napped until about 11:30. I got up, and I've really been enjoying this season of Mandalore and having some different perspectives on some of the Mandalorians. So I've been picking up more action figures. So I decided to just spread out as many of my Mandalorian and Mandalorian related action figures as would fit. I had a whiskey. I am also missing the kind of pub beer from the UK. So I bought a 4-pack of Boddingtons. So I had Boddingtons, Jameson, and about 18 action figures all ready to enjoy this. And it was the right mindset to be in. It was really the right mindset for this kind of fist pumping episode.
Yeah, indeed. Good stuff.
So let's dive into our overall reactions. Love it, like it, struggle with it. And Ken, I want to try this.
Okay.
There's a lot to discuss in our overall reaction about what was there, what we responded to in terms of what the episode actually was, but then also our reactions to what wasn't there, what there might have been a various build-up to expect, either from ourselves or from the chatter on social media. For our overall reaction, let's start with how we reacted to what was there, what was in the episode, and then we'll also talk about our reaction to what wasn't there. Does that work for you?
Absolutely works for me. And I think that's a good way to start the conversation. For me, my overall reaction was, I was satisfied. Satisfied because it brought home all the things it set out to do this season and in this series so far. I know there's talk of this felt like a series finale versus a season finale, and that's actually very fair. But I think this chapter of all these characters' lives is closed and we're on to other things. And this season was about the return of Mandalore, and no more, a little bit more, but no more, no less. And it was about how this can happen. Why does it need to happen? And what will it take? And I think it never strayed from that. It also never strayed from me. It never strayed from Moff Gideon's desire to have Mandalore for himself, to take it from them, to use it all for his own game and his own gain. The clones were him. That big reveal was what worked for me, because he is the idea of self. Mm-hmm. He is self-personified, and we're going to get into that. And I think that's one of those real direct themes. It's a point at the screen and go, yep, that's what's going on, and it's all for him. And so for me, that worked. It satisfied also the long arc of, it brought home the lone wolf meeting cub story that we began with, and took it to a nice emotional spot for me. It did what it set out to do. And also, for what it's worth, Joseph, it was a happy ending to the story. Rest in peace, Paz Vizsla last week, but otherwise, everyone kind of got to be happy. And I think I'm okay with that, and I think we need that from time to time. We need Ewoks to dance every now and then in our lives, and that's what it did for me.
Yeah, I'm really with you. The first words that came to my mind when I watched the first episode, and then I tapped my little notes sitting on my couch with my action figures and my Boddingtons. And the first 2 words that came to mind was explosive and direct. This, for me, was like a direct third act Star Wars finale. All of the pieces had been put into place. It was about the spectacle. It was about the action. It was about the characters pushing themselves to accomplish the things that they set out to do, that they believed in. It is Ewoks dancing. It is Boss Nass yelling peace with an orb. That, to me, was the point of this episode. This was an episode about bringing it all home. And that really worked for me. I whooped and fist pumped at the very beginning of "You with me?" Affirmative nod from Grogu into the credits. All right, let's do this thing. I was really thrilled by the fact that this was something that I dreamt of, and many episodes have been like it, but this one really went above and beyond. This was a full Clone Wars episode in live action. I have spoken many times about watching the Clone Wars and powering through it on Netflix, because I didn't watch it when it was broadcast, and being more and more amazed as time went by. And by the time Darth Maul was fighting Pre-Vizsla with the Darksaber, my jaw was just on the floor. And now that mood, that energy, that scale is here in live action, which is an accomplishment. When you compare this finale to season 1 finale of The Mandalorian, which I enjoy, but I enjoy on the ideas level, the performance level. But just rewatch that, like they couldn't afford enough troops for me to feel like IG-11's sacrifice was was truly necessary. Like, I accept that that's what the characters are saying and that's what the intent is, and I like the emotion behind it. But then there's a part of me is like, there's like 10 guys. I know they have a strategic advantage at the mouth of the cave, but like you can take them, right? Because they couldn't even afford to populate it, digitally with 80 troops. The contrast between that and hundreds of commandos and mandos flying at each other and having rocket fights, like. I don't want to lose the joy of this live action spectacle and the scale of it. And that part of it is important to me.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair to look back to the season 1 finale and go, the big ship was Gideon's, TIE advance, TIE ship landing. And here
Outlander, I believe.
Outlander, thank you. In this one, we got a capital ship crashing into Mandalore. It's just the scale is bigger, and that comes with the show growing, with the story growing, and not just the budget, which is a reality, but the skill set of those making that magic on screen, of knowing what they can do with the tech and going, okay, you want to do that? You want to crash a ship into Mandalore? Yeah, how can we pull that off? And that's part of the spirit of Star Wars as well. And I do think it's right to acknowledge that and celebrate that.
Yeah, and it's always been a heart of Star Wars. It's not like, we have to throw some action, and it's been a part of the point of the pulp adventure thrill in this episode. So delivered on that element of things, and then thematically and emotionally, like you're talking about, it was just very direct. And I was like 80% expecting this, exactly what we got, which is that in general, Favreau's writing, I would say, in Book of Boba Fett and this season of The Mandalorian, across both seasons of Mandalorian, but increasingly so, it is very sincere and direct. There is subtext sometimes, but often the characters say exactly what they mean. They don't believe in this, then something happens and they change and they say, I accept this now, and so I'm going to act on it. And then they do. And this finale was very sincere and very direct in its themes and in what the characters believed in. And it didn't feel to me like a series finale. I understand how other people would feel that way. It absolutely felt like a great season finale, because it made all the threads in this season feel whole. That this season was not, it didn't become Bo-Katan's show. It became an ensemble show. Right. And there were episodes where Din and Grogu were the focus, and there are episodes where Din and Grogu were maybe a little bit in the background as it became Bo-Katan's show, or an episode where it became the New Republic and the Baby First Order's show in the third episode of the season, The Convert. In this episode brought everything in the season and the first the first 2 seasons together. Gideon's plan, Mando and the New Republic, the Mythosaur, Navarro needs a marshal. All of these great ideas that are from the whole show, but also from season 3, really came together. But it also felt to me like a really great reset, where the characters sort of accomplished what they needed to do for this chapter of their journey, and they're all turned and looking toward the future, which if it's a movie, it's cool. It's like the end of A New Hope, and you can go, they had a parade and it's over, right?
Yeah.
But it felt much more to me like, okay, great. This was a beautiful end of this part of Din's journey, Din and Grogu's journey. But it's also the setup for Din is the Ranger of the New Republic. People kept asking what happened to that show. Like, well, there we go. Din Djarin and Din Grogu are the Rangers of the New Republic. Mandalore is back. A resurgent Mandalore is born.
Yeah.
But how are they going to interact with the rest of the galaxy? Are they going to join the New Republic? I don't think the show did a lot to stir up the tension, but the tension to me is implicit of they came together to get their home back. Are they going to be able to stay together and grow those plants? So I do feel like there was a great sense of conclusion, resolution, but a lot to look forward to in the future. And in particular, since we know that there's more storytelling going on in this era and about this era, that it felt like this wonderful, positive, forward-looking ending.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's a lot of shots that are reminiscent of endings, and there are definitely endings here. But I think there's several points where explicitly it is stated further adventures to be had. So we haven't. I think season 4 seems to be a foregone conclusion, and there's a lot of that. I'd like to have this go on forever kind of talk from Favreau and everyone there, but I don't know any official word on that. And if we're going to get Mandalorian season 4, or like you said, the new version of the Rangers of the New Republic, I'd like to call it Carson's Heroes, but that's another pitch I did there. So. But I'm with you on that. But there's some emotional wrap up, and that counts because we've been on this journey for 3 count of Book of Boba Fett 4 years.
Yeah. It feels like a phase of their lives, of the Mandalorians and of Din and Grogu's lives are wrapped up. But Favreau's talked explicitly about having already written Mandalorian season 4, so I think it invites great. Unless suddenly Bob Iger's like, Mandalorian season 4 is already written, and I would imagine in pre-production.
Yeah.
So forward looking. Final thing for me about kind of what was there is I saw some other people kind of tweeting about it feeling like classic Star Wars. And it did to me because it was about the action. There was a moment where a thing we talked about a lot at the beginning of The Mandalorian, that this is written by people who grew up with the original trilogy and grew up playing with action figures who in the original trilogy were characters who were seen on the screen for a split second, but they fired your imagination. And Favreau has said in quotes like, what if you didn't have any of the main characters? That's the pitch of this show. You dump out your toys and you don't have Han, you don't have Luke, you don't have Leia, you don't have Vader, you don't have Kenobi. You got a couple bounty hunters and droids and an Ugnaught. What are you going to do with that? Yeah. And I felt the spirit of that at that moment when there's like, okay, and these characters are now their own unique characters, but from the perspective of the original trilogy era and action figures, like I got a Boba Fett, I got an IG-88, I stuck a Yoda inside IG-88. They're working with R5-D4, and they're going to fight a bunch of stormtroopers that I'm imagining have jetpacks. Like, it had that sense of imagination and that sense of play, and the ending being both explosive with all the cool action in loving action for action's sake, but ending on that beautiful, peaceful scene of their new home, waiting to go off on another adventure. It was a balm. It's been a stressful couple days, and this was one of those Star Wars is there for me moments. It was really joyful.
There was a nice audible exhale at that final shot.
Yeah.
My first thought was, call up Omira, see what she's doing. Invite her over. Come on, Dan.
It was so the picture of Sanctuary, Chapter 4 Sanctuary, and we can talk about that more. But it really was like, was Din going through his mental Rolodex there?
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Would Omera want to come over? Would Bo want to come over? Who knows? All right, so we talked about our overall reaction to what was there, but I think this is one of those episodes where people had built up a lot of different expectations, I think us included, when it comes to the armor. So how did you respond to what wasn't there?
the first viewing's always going to be a little bit of like okay. They did this, they didn't do that. And I think that's fair. And I think that's part of the process. I can get a little grumpy around this now long-standing issue I think fandoms in general have with conclusions of any kind, seasons, series, episodes even. I keep saying this. I wish a person smarter than me commissioned some sort of study on our psychological attachment to the journey and getting to the end and feeling as though it's a letdown. It just seems to be this natural thing that happens, and it's how you process it there. It doesn't mean there wasn't things left on the table. I think the show did leave some things on the table. I'm looking at this show. The Mandalorian it has become increasingly aware of the larger Star Wars story of this era, the New Republic era. The show went from small corner, almost intentionally disconnected from that, to now being a part of it. So it's aware of it, but it's not yet about the larger Star Wars story in this era. It will be. We're moving towards that, not in a necessarily Avengers connected universe kind of way, but just as Din becomes who he is more supposed to be and is more out in the galaxy and is now fighting for the New Republic, so to speak. Like, he's now more aware because he wasn't aware. And a lot of it might be related to how he was raised, but also how he was choosing to live at that point. So to expect all those answers, and I'm not saying expect in some tattletale or wiggling my finger at you kind of way. You should have expectations. We always say it's part of the fun. But I think, and I'll get into some specifics, but there are a lot of deeper questions this season seem to not answer. And so that led to a little bit of my slight emotional letdown on the first viewing. But I ask you all, and I ask myself, did the show ask those questions or did I? And I really like your point about Favreau's writing. I always come up with some dumb analogy to like music or wrestling or something. But for me, it's like, I just last year and a half ago, time flies, went to a wonderful Rolling Stones concert at SoFi, one of the all-time great bands. You get what you get from them. This is a song about you can't get satisfaction. Enjoy it. It's not a Pink Floyd 8-minute, let's mull over the corner of emotion that we're all dealing with. It's not Mozart, right? It's a pop song. And this is a rock radio song for me, this whole show. And I don't think doesn't mean you can't get emotions from it. Like you and I defending the idea of playing with your action figures. Why, especially why as a fandom is that looked down upon sometimes? And that's exactly what happens a lot. I have friends look down upon it. Oh, it's just playing with your action figures. You and I talked about chapter 2 of this season. I forget the overall number now. Of Bo-Katan being that. None of this means anything. It's what forms us. And so this show's dealing with that. So I specifically have some questions about the armor. I would love to have that insight into her. I'd love to have her sit down with Bo-Katan and have a conversation similar to Andor and Nemec. But Favreau's not painting in that style. So it's not fair to ask the show or expect the show to do that. So to your point, I had that thought to myself as I want to know more about the armor. I didn't trust her. I didn't like a lot of the things she did. But now I have to realize I have to go back and go, that was the moment she went, you know what? I'm changing. And I'm committing and confirming this change in me. And I'm not wavering from it. In fact, I'm taking my hammer out and I'm whapping people upside the head with it because that's how I'm changed. And that's what the show has done from the beginning. It is I used to, joke about it wrote what it wrote. It said what it said. It is all there on the page and all there on the screen. And I understand feeling a little let down, but again, I think Bad Batch is my favorite show right now. Right? We're going to rank things. I think Bad Batch is the thing, and I think there's a different kind of character development and a different kind of character confirmation. You and I keep talking. Sorry, then I'll pass the hammer back. But like, Din is not spinning his wheels. Din has made decisions and is living in them. And so it sometimes might feel like he's not moving forward or growing, or he's made decisions, and these are the results of those decisions. So I stand by this episode for that. Yes, there's some things I felt we could ask about. Even some of the stuff at the end with Carson Teva. Gideon didn't get to trial. Did anyone care about that? Did anyone know about that? Yeah, I could live in that negative space for a little bit. Or even him going, all right, well, it's against regulations, but I'll take care of it. What's going on in the New Republic? Does Leia know any of this? Like, I have those questions. It's fun. And I can't wait to explore that a little bit more. But I don't think this show ever told you we're going to sit down and spend 22 minutes on the armorer's mindset. And therefore, I walk away satisfied.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think, you and I speculated hard about the armor, and almost every episode of our our report, we'd be like, but there are dark tones, aren't there? There's what's she thinking under that helmet? She can't like that. She doesn't like that. And I think for myself,
yeah,
they did a great job of building up the armor as rigid and unyielding. We talked about this extensively on a Questions of the Force episode of really breaking down what about the Children of the Watch and the way the armor runs it is, from our moral perspective, negative. Excluding Din from knowledge, just not giving him the option of knowing what other Mandalorians believe, not knowing the history, not teaching him about Jedi, really being restrictive, being rigid, being that idea of he took his helmet off to make a connection to a loved one, and he is punished for that. That is if the armor is a mother figure, it is extremely cold, not unconditional love, conditional love. That it is a culture that encourages the Children of the Watch, encourages constant battle of emphasizing dominance and fighting. All this long list, and had even more stuff. And I think there's a part of me that is like, I think that this show put a lot of interesting things on the table. And there's a part of me that's like, yes, I would still like those things dug into a little bit more. And maybe in a season 4, the armor is trying to bend, but Bo-Katan wants to do things a certain way, and all the Mandalorians are trying to work together, but the different perspectives, especially as they maybe get even more shattered tribes, more splinters of the Death Watch, maybe there is more of a battle of not slipping into the old Civil War ways for all the Mandalorians. Maybe Bo-Katan wants to put up a statue of Satine, and that's a bridge too far for the armor. Who knows? Maybe that reckoning will come. Maybe it won't. But I have to accept, okay, there were interesting things put on the table, but the show was what it said on the tin. The armor was shown to be pretty rigid, and several episodes went by where she saw things in a different way. She saw that Din's perspective and Bo-Katan's perspective was working. She saw the power of their leadership, encouraging Mandalorians to be heroes, to step out of the light and to be there for other people. She saw that Bo-Katan had a kind of leadership to offer that she, the armor, didn't in that moment, and encouraged it. All these things she did sincerely. And I don't want to be so caught up in the story that I want to hear that I don't accept the story that I saw. So I feel comfortable saying I'm interested in those ideas of the armor. I would still like them to be explored, but I want to enjoy the story and engage with the story that I was presented with. And that story, going back, is the armor made a change and acted on it. And it was inspired by Din and inspired by Bo-Katan, and it benefited her people. And that's the story, and that has value.
It's almost as if Bo-Katan was standing on the shores of Dinosaur Lake Cave Island and went, this ain't working. We keep losing foundlings, and we're not doing good, and we're in the shadows. Oh, this way seems to be, we have our way, they have ours, we can work together. It's almost like some lessons were learned. But I'm with you. I'd love to have, a one-shot, Emily Swallow stage play of Inside the Armorer's Soul. Like, I'd love to know why. And I think there's some I think it's so real world. Maybe some of the stuff you can pull it out, and we pull real world stuff out. There's some stuff I'm going to pull out in this episode that affects my week, not only my life, specifically my week, but there's a lot of stuff going on with the Children of the Watch and cults and religious trauma and those kind of things. And I think a lot of people connected with that in the way of, ooh, this hurt me. It's got to be hurting Den, and I want it dealt with. And I think that's fair stuff. I think it's fair, but to be blunt, the show, it needs to do what it needs to do. It does not need to reach into your life and deal with it right now. That's another conversation and maybe another type of show. And I don't know. I don't mean that to sound blunt, because we're all dealing with some things, but we can connect with it so powerfully. But the show can only be responsible for that to a point for me, for my money.
Yeah. And I understand if people just say that it's not for me. You raised the idea that Din was in a restrictive, rigid cult. Yes. Yes. The show never said cult. It was another character's perspective that was cult, that said cult. Bo-Katan, Axe Woves, Cosca Reeves said cult. The show didn't say cult. Fair enough. But I also can see somebody going, I've had really bad experiences being trapped in restrictive authoritarian groups and being told that this is the way, period, is upsetting. The show put it out there and the show didn't deal with it. And therefore I'm not going to enjoy the show as much. I have the utmost respect for that. But I also feel like the show put out some examples of rigidity, some examples of, in my opinion, poor parenting, not tell Din about his history in the galaxy. Yeah. But the show went out of its way this season to say the parts of the way that Din believes in are honor, loyalty, character, defending and training the next generation at all costs, that the point of the way is to keep Mandalorians together, to keep them safe, to be stronger together. And even if there are parts of the way that I still feel like you dangled it out there that it was nasty, maybe deal with it. I also want to reckon with the fact that the majority of season 3 is showing us that Din is constantly, he keeps having conversations with the armorer where she says, this is the way. And then he goes, well, actually, there's this other part of the creed that says X. And she goes, that is the way too. Yeah. Which turns it into less rigid, turns it into a conversation. Even the end there with Grogu, which becoming Din Grogu, we can talk about. But I have to reckon with the fact that this season does show Din and Bo-Katan constantly making arguments for the way and the creed being powerful, in my opinion, morally good. Let's work together. Let's look out for one another. Let's look out for the young. Let's train the young so they are ready. Let's not give up on things. Let's have the bravery to put our heads back out in the light. Let's rebuild. All these great ideas that is what the way is this season.
Yeah, no, I will talk more about the end, but I think there's a great amount of agency and choice in the armor's reaction to Din's desires, and I think that's there. And so again, that was one of my big things is I love the character of the armor, but in that way of what are you doing? And I think we got to see what she did. And she changed, and that's where we're at right now. So we'll see more. But anyways, more conversations to have, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to touch on the whole the spies thing. And for me, I do think it is in the general camp of speculate responsibly. Don't mean to say that to try to sell our T-shirts. The speculate responsibly thing came out of the reaction to The Last Jedi, where I think so many of us in the fan community got focused on answers. What was Luke's first word going to be? Who exactly are Rey's parents? On and on. We were interested in the guessing game, like the entire value of the narrative was a murder mystery. Maybe not everybody feels that way. That's how I felt, and I think that's how. And it made it hard to engage for some people with the story that was presented to them. Same thing going back to the original trilogy's generation's reaction to the prequels. We had a laundry list of things we expected to see. We didn't see them or saw different things. And it took many of us years to engage with the story that was actually there, which is my personal experience where I feel strongly about this. And I felt like this week was maybe one of those times where some of us got ahead of ourselves with the spies guessing game. And when we recorded our episode about chapter 23, entitled The Spies, we had some fun guessing, like, could the armor be a spy? Maybe Axe Woves. That would be interesting because
I was all in on Axe.
Yeah, and I was interested in Axe because he had been presented as a Mandalorian who was up for selling his honor up to a point. He tried to make in the Guns for Hire episode, he tried to make a big point about the kind of things he would and wouldn't do. And actually what he was doing was honorable. But then there was that snide line from Coscar Reeves about, yeah, I thought Mandalorians were honorable, and like they are for a price. So I thought there was an interesting question to be had about what makes you a Mandalorian. Is Axe Woves going to be somebody who failed to live up to what Din, Bo-Katan, Armor, Grogu, etc. are living up to? So I thought it was perfectly fun to speculate. I have to be honest that when we recorded the episode, I had not yet been on the internet and saw how much that sections of the fandom had turned this final episode into an elaborate guessing game about who the spy is.
Right.
And then, many people tweeted, some people tweeted at us that the Spies has a pretty direct biblical reference that really makes a lot of sense of the episode. The Spies, obviously, there's the literal Kane is a spy that Shadow Council you could look at as a group of spies secretly infiltrating the New Republic. But I am not a biblical expert, Ken, so I pulled this quote from Wikipedia, not Wikipedia, Wikipedia, which says the 12 spies, as recorded in the Book of Numbers, were a group of Israelite chieftains, one from each of the 12 tribes, who were dispatched by Moses to scout out the land of Canaan for 40 days as a future home for the Israelite people during the time when the Israelites were in the wilderness following their exodus from ancient Egypt. The account is found in it's found in the Bible, everybody, in places.
Book of Numbers and Deuteronomy.
Deuteronomy and Numbers 13. Anyway, not a biblical expert. I went to Catholic grade school, 1st through 3rd grade, and didn't get this deep. Anyway, point being, trying to have a little sense of humor about it, but point being, just like things like the title, The Book of Boba Fett, meaning not Boba Fett's, got a hardback book, but that this is a story of the character of who, this is the summation of who is this man. Just like that, the Spies seems like pretty good bet that's referencing, the 3 different tribes of Mandalorians who were dispatched to their home, to their once home, to find a new safe future home. How do you feel about that?
It's, I think, 100% there. The Israelites going back to Canaan, the promised land, the spies being sent out. Yeah, it's almost, I'm surprised I missed it, even having spent a little more time studying this back in my youth. And I'm sure Favreau did as well. And it's, you definitely, again, whether you agree with it or not, or you love that, or I get it. But Favreau's probably writing the story, and it's like, it's like the Israelites returning home. I get it. Let me do this. To be fair, the title The Spies is pretty intriguing when it comes to speculation, right? So I don't fault ourselves or anyone for missing this direct connection. And also, Favreau doesn't come out, and it was like you said, celebration. All right, can you all pull out your Bible and open to the Book of Numbers? He didn't say that. But yeah, I'd say this is pretty clear and direct.
And I think we always have fun talking about the title. We're going to talk about the title of this episode. The title often does have some ambiguity to it. I still love Chapter 3 being called The Sin, where extremely honorable Din Djarin breaks multiple codes, and you're invited to ask which one is the sin. A number of other examples where I think Favreau has fun with this. And fair enough, yes. The show, that episode starts with a literal spy in Kane that does invite you to ask who are the other spies. But I think for me, seeing some of the tweets that I saw of, we're talking 18 tweet threads explaining this look from the armor and this moment of season 1 could have actually been blah, blah, blah. I think I definitely was affected watching the episode, wondering if the people who had gone real deep on trying to figure out who the spy in the Mandalorians were, if they were having a hard time with the episode because it had become about that.
Yeah, well, I want to get this guy. We're 40 minutes in. This is going to be a 3-hour episode, I'm sure. Wonderful way to spend my birthday. I mean this sincerely. But this is a little bit when I get a little grumpy about the overall state of movie and TV punditry is when you're looking for the Easter eggs, which, by the way, that term is misused completely. When you're looking for the things in the episodes and you want to have red arrows pointing to what this means, you often just you focus on that to the point where you miss the point. Right. And it's fun stuff. Again, I was convinced Axe Woves was going to be a spy. I'm glad I was wrong. I got thoughts on Axe. I like where he ended up. But yeah, this is kind of the game. And you're talking about the threads and this and that. And I always say here, as deep as we go on Force Center, and we go deep and we love going deep as we go. I really do think, Joseph, we're sitting there pointing at the screen going, there it is. That's what they said. And I really think that's our focus. And I always say, enjoy Star Wars the way you want to enjoy it. And I mean that. But I just think that's the stuff when I see it. And that's, I didn't see a lot of this stuff because I had muted the word The Mandalorian during Celebration because I couldn't get to the episode 7 soon enough. And I knew I wasn't going to get to it till after I came back from Paris. And so I just wanted to not be spoiled. And I'm going to keep that word up for a little bit because I missed all this. So anyways, it's the 12 spies from the Bible, everybody.
There you go.
That's the Easter egg.
That's the Easter egg. Yeah, and I think it is absolutely fine to speculate. I think the speculate responsibly thing comes. It is sincere and a little tongue in cheek. And to me, what it is talking about is I don't want to personally speculate so hard that I only react to what I thought was going to be there, and it blinds me personally from seeing what is there and enjoying that. I don't think it's wrong to speculate. You know what I've been happy about? I've been speculating for years that maybe Gideon isn't trying to make Snoke or Palpatine. Maybe he's just trying to give himself force powers, and that was kind of right. It's fun to speculate. It's fun to go, yay! I was in tune with the show. I was in the vibe. That stuff is all fun. I just don't want it to become. It bums me out when it makes it so people can't engage with what's there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, let's move on then to the big themes. What ideas are at stake in this episode? What are the moments where we were like Leonardo DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood going, there, she said stronger together. For you, Ken, how did you process some of the big ideas of this episode and maybe how they related to the season?
Yeah. I think there's two big things at play, and that all. I didn't even have notes on the final one. It all leads to this wonderful life persists moment from Charles Darnell's character. I don't have much behind that one. I just think it all kind of leads to that in a way. But I think there's just some big ones at play. Together versus alone, and Gideon's desire for what he can't have, and how that relates to a lot of us, and how that can bring you down. In Star Wars, it's a quest and it's a thirst for power, but really for us, it's about overlooking who we are, and we can get into that. But yeah, the together versus alone is very clear. Like you said, it's said a few times. I'd say a few times this season. It's the tribe of Mandalore versus one man's desires. I said earlier, I think Gideon is self. He's the idea of self. This is why I personally really love that we've touched on that there's something called Project Necromancer. We've touched upon ideas that might connect to the bowels of Exegol, or even into the past, or even with some of the stuff at play in the Bad Batch. But really, it's about one man going, you know what I want to see more of? Me. It's about. So then there's just examples all the way through. Obviously, R5, Elvin, Din, and Grogu, the tribes fighting together, all aspects of who they are and needed. There's a danger when Din and Grogu are separated, and all of it leading to Bo-Katan, who would have lost alone in that final heroic confrontation, but she needed everyone to be together, and she got that. And Mandalorians are strong together. It's a big point. So again, I have a lot of thoughts, but I just think it's one of those, like, here you go, together versus alone, and there's big lessons in it.
No, I agree. And I think that it is very, very direct. It's what the season was building to. It is stated clearly by Bo-Katan, but I think there is power in that moment, which I want to get back to in a moment. What I really liked about this episode is I feel like there were a lot of clear ideas at work throughout the season. And I feel like this was a big action-packed fist pumping, heartwarming, not heart punching, fist pumping and heartwarming spectacle that addressed all of them. I think one of the big themes of the season was, can you change? We're in this season of potential rebirth as the New Republic, the Empire's gone, the New Republic is trying to start, the Jedi are trying to start. Every planet we visit is trying a new form of government, trying something new. The convert episode is about Pershing being dragged back to the past. So there's this huge question across the season of, can you change? And this episode was a bunch of Mandalorians screaming, yes! Yes, the Mandalorians successfully put their differences aside, their instinct to prove strength through domination. They put that aside and they were stronger together. They changed for the greater good. It's been on the table. What does it mean to be a Mandalorian? And we've seen different ideas of it, but they came ringing through in this episode. Honor, sacrifice, being there for the next generation. Grogu, I'm going to need you to be brave for me, okay? And he is. There's also been a big idea of home. What is the value of home? Lots of people are rebuilding their homes. Lots of people are trying to build a new home like Navarro. We start the season with Navarro really trying to be this beautiful, prosperous place. And a bunch of pirates going, no, you can't have a school. It's a bar and always has been, always will be. And what I think an interesting idea about home that I think this episode really drives through is, of course, everybody deserves a home. And there's the idea that home is a people, but it is also a place. It's one of the things that was most powerful about the ending of this episode of the Mandalorians in their fractured coverts and tribes and mercenary groups have survived, and they could thrive on Navarro, but they want to be on their home with their history, relighting their forge. Dian has had such wonderful experiences of growth and discovery and renewal and friendship and connection on Navarro, and it's meaningful that's where he and Grogu are sitting peacefully with a home. They could be anywhere in the galaxy. The N1 could be their home, and they would still have an emotional home in one another, a clan of two. But home is also a place, and that's part of what was so sweet and comforting and a balm about the end of the episode for me, of getting down to this idea of what does home mean. It's a people, but it is also a place.
Yeah, I love that idea, because I think a lot of things that play in the season too, we're talking about the big overall themes, is, I've discussed it, but this kind of trauma recovery, and Star Wars deals with that a lot on an individual basis, right? But this was very much about how do we all recover? And I say quite confidently that, look at what we as a world have gone through in the last couple of years as a collective trauma, and how people deal with it, how people decide to go forward. And a lot of it is, that search for home is a search for yourself, the search for a place to stand, not wanting to give up, but how do you come together to move forward? I think a lot of that's at play. And that's why I thought I was particularly moved by the relighting of the Great Forge moment about recovering. And there's different ways to recover, different ways to move forward, to let go and change. But it was a standing of the ground that I liked.
Yeah, no, I really agree, and I want to talk more about that, because I do think there was power in the way that they dug into some of these big picture themes. But I feel like they raised questions. Can you change? What does it mean to be a Mandalorian? What is the value of home? And this episode was interested in answering them in a direct and sincere way. I really love what you've been saying about stronger together versus what did you call it?
The idea of self.
The idea of self, yeah, stronger together versus rule of one it is very, very direct. Gideon is obsessed only with himself, literally making himself, and that idea that he will be perfect if he takes more from other people. That all he's missing to be perfect is what other people have. Yeah, what the Mandalorians have, what the Jedi have. It is vanity without seeing the fact that he is actually, embracing stronger together, but in a manipulative, destructive way. Like, Diversity is good, but what if I take it for myself? Is powerful and destructive. And yeah, Bo-Katan literally says stronger together. But I thought, and it was we talked about it last episode. It was very present in last week's episode as well. But this wasn't only the tribes coming together. They were listening to Bo-Katan's leadership about how to, move around the conflict so that they can get the upper hand and all that kind of practical plot stuff in the big picture. But there was also just so much imagery in the action that Din and Bo-Katan and Grogu kept sweeping in and saving one another. That real Star Wars save what you love, not fight what you hate. They kept swooping in and shielding and guarding and protecting, and I'll hold this person off so you can help this person. It was there in the action as well. You mentioned it. R5D4 appears to be a valued member of the group at this point, and the number of times that Din calls him buddy. I need you, buddy.
Love that.
But the stronger together idea that I really wanted to talk with you about, and I know it might be, I haven't got a chance to really see people's reaction to this, is the destruction of the Darksaber. Not only is this moment where, it looks like Bo-Katan is going to lose, but then Din and Grogu step in to help in the real explicit line from Gideon, Mandalorians are weak once they lose their trinkets. Which really ties to what's been said throughout the series about weapons are a part of our religion. Weapons are a part of our culture. It's how Space Jack Black, a bombardier, zigs and zags around their rules. It's like, you can have weapons because it's your culture. And here's this really dark version of it. They're trinkets, and that's all you have. Bo-Katan responds with the very underlined line, Mandalorians are stronger together. But within that, what's most interesting to me is the Darksaber is a symbol that can unite Mandalorians, but it is a symbol of who is the leader, who is the one who will lead the way. It is something that can be inspiring and powerful, but can also be something that's sort of corrupting. It is about the Mandalorian instinct, the part of their culture that so values strength and power that it has to be about dominance. It has to be that you win the Darksaber from someone by kicking their ass. And anybody who wants to take the Darksaber from you, it's a constant invitation to fight. So the Darksaber has the beauty of it's a symbol that can bring people together, but also it's a symbol that can agitate this desire for constant conflict. And as you've pointed out already many times, there is already a difference in the way that Bo-Katan gets it this time. It isn't just about kicking ass and defeating an enemy. It's about being there to help Din. So she won it in a way that is more about stronger together. But the big thing that I've been leading to is Bo-Katan, sweatpants, Bo-Katan lounging on the throne. At many other times in her life, Bo-Katan would have been broken by the Darksaber being broken, because she would have piled all of her meaning, all of her strength into this object, which can be powerful to do. But she didn't miss a beat, because it wasn't about her needing to be the leader with the sword that single-handedly saves the day. She needed to be the leader who brought everyone together. She didn't need the Darksaber. She didn't need the one thing. She needed all of her people together, and that absolute faith that people are going to have her back, and they did. And to me, that it kind of like nerd-wise would be like, but I want to see more stuff with the Darksaber. It's cool. I wanted to buy a Bo-Katan action figure that came with the Darksaber. All that nerd stuff I can get caught up in, and I can get excited about, but maybe it'll come back or whatever. Darksaber's awesome. But the meaning of that, I think, was was what really gave the stronger together moment its power, because it was Bo-Katan letting go of the power of me being the leader is bringing people together. The power, it's not me empowering myself to be the one who does everything. It's about me bringing people together.
Yeah, well said on the journey of the Darksaber, and I for one am confident that I think you can rebuild that. I think Star Wars has shown that. Put some spider legs on the Darksaber, we're going to be okay. But I love the idea of a mythical sword, right? This symbol of power and leadership and salvation and community and culture, and I think there's a lot to the Darksaber, but that just means well, like you said, when it goes well, but when it goes wrong. Maul grabs it and you all got to bend the knee because he's got the sword. That's when it breaks down for me. When it loses its true purpose and meaning, but you're trapped by it. It's an absolute trap. And I think there's a little bit for me of what worked, and I know it didn't work for everybody, of this season. Almost, I'm saying there's a little bit of a wink of a nod because we use this phrase a lot, but it's like this breaking of the cycle of violence of the Darksaber, breaking a little bit of the hold. You're right. Sweatpants Bo-Katan, when we meet her, by the way, she doesn't take any action if Din doesn't show up. So he's a catalyst for so much in this season. She's sitting there thinking, I'm nothing without it, right? That's the simple lesson. And then here, this going to my idea of Gideon's desire for what he can't have. Yes, he talked about clones of himself trying to get the Force, this trinket line. But Star Wars is so often about who you are being enough, right? Are you a rock band in Visions Volume 1? Are you Jar Jar Binks? Are you a leader who lost her sword? Who you are is enough. Gideon fails in that regard. He fails with it time and time again because he's always trying to take and always trying to build and always trying to get, as he says, the one thing I never had, the Force, and then I'll be better. And that's all of us in our lives. It's the keeping up with the Joneses philosophy of modern America. And I think there could be power with Bo-Katan going, I don't need it, but she's in a fight. This isn't Luke at the end. It's a different feel than, say, the end of Return of the Jedi. She needs that at the moment because it's a damn good weapon. But life sometimes takes away our own Darksabers from us, right? Life sometimes steps on it and crunches it with its mechanical armor. And you need to find yourself in those situations just as much as when you lay it down on your own by your own accord. She earned that Darksaber, as we've said all through this season, by being who she is. That's what Din is saying in that moment. And I think that's the power of it. And that's the lesson she's got there that does all lead to this. And this great little trinket line means so much. Without it, she is still who she is. And that's all she needs, because that person inspires the others around her to survive, to come together, to thrive as one. And I think that's part of the lesson for me. So could she have had this revelation of, oh, trinkets, you know what? Toss the saber away. You're right. I don't need it. I got my fists and my friends. Yeah, it could have been one way to do it, but I think this carries the journey of the Darksaber through this particular show and season.
Yeah, I really agree. I think it is a powerful thing to say the goal is more important than how it is accomplished, which has been hanging over the Darksaber of and Bo-Katan for her own healing, right? I surrendered it to try to save my people, and that was a betrayal of my honor. That was a betrayal of the path of the Darksaber. I got suckered. I need this. I need so much of her energy before was I personally need to take the Darksaber and cut this man's head off. And that's the only way I'll be whole again. And to have all of her sort of focus and energy redirected to, we just need this guy out of our face so we can rebuild. And rebuilding is what matters. Mandalore is what matters. My obsession isn't what matters. The goal matters. And I have had that experience in my life in lots of ways where I've slipped into the Bo-Katan. Like, it's not just the goal. I want to do this to achieve it. Or it is so great how Star Wars can affect weird parts of our lives. This is a theater exercise. When you're putting on a show, a theatrical show, you need everybody to be, what is the goal? The goal is to have a great show. And of course, we all want to have like a moment where we shine or we're seen, and that's great. But if the goal of putting on a great show becomes about one person needing a spotlight in this moment, or not thinking about the whole at all, only thinking about what they personally need out of it, that's where it gets corrupted and not as good, because you're not focused on, we want to put on a good show for the audience. That is the goal. And I think this was my weird analogy is Bo-Katan decided, hey, let's put on a good show for the whole audience.
Yeah.
I don't need to do that monologue that actually disrupts the whole flow of the show.
Yeah. She's just in the moment. She is who she is. She's herself, and that's enough. And I think that's part of the point. And how this one personally kind of reached out to me this week, and I have to admit that this is something I'm connecting with. Of life sometimes squishes your dark saber. I'm experiencing that right now in my own life, my own struggles. My car's in the shop. It's my birthday, and I got nothing to show for much. And is that who I am, or am I more than that? Life has crunched my dark saber. I got to stand up, and I get through this with friends and family, and who I am driving me forward. I hope, and that's the goal. Put on a good show, as you say. So anyway, I really love this moment. It was. Something not surprising. Yes, this seemed to happen, but I was a little surprised that the Darksaber was crunched out of existence, at least for this episode. And I think it could return. It'd be fun. There's a lot of history to it. But I think to your point at the end, to take it all the way back, it is a great symbol for the Mandalorian people. It is also, it's a hopeful symbol. It's also a trap. It's also a trap. And can you let go of it when you need to?
Yep. And, the surprise, I think, from Gideon that he expects that to break her, and she is stronger than that.
Yep.
Is powerful. I want to talk a little bit more about these ideas of home and rebirth. You were talking about being affected by the Forge. I was really affected by the Forge as well. The second time I watched it this morning, the way both the armor and Bo-Katan are carrying that torch. There was a second where I looked at it. Did they reform the hilt of the Darksaber into the torch? But it was almost like the torch had taken the place of the Darksaber to me, like visually, of this is the thing that truly makes us who we are, is relighting this forge. There are so many images and ideas in this episode of home, like we talked about, but also rebirth. Obviously, the plot is they retake their home. They literally relight their forge. They discover that plants still grow, which I think is powerful regardless. But if you spent time with the Clone Wars and saw the barren world with the domed cities, and like Bo-Katan says in the episode, the plants grew inside the domed city, but they live on a scar. They live on a planet that is defined by, this is a part of who we are. It's violence, 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 and this is where that leads. In Satine's question, can we have another kind of strength in discovering that plants can still grow, and even that they come out of death, right? That all of these creatures have awakened after the bombing. Even the plants have somehow reawakened after the bombing. It's a really beautiful dark side, light side. The dark side thinks it can control everything. It can crush everything. It can end everything. But as a tragically unnamed Mandalorian survivor captain says, life persists. That was great. Completing Ragnar's interrupted initiation is rebirth. I feel like the idea with seeing the mythosaur is another thing that maybe we could all get hung up on, of like, who's going to ride it when?
Yeah.
maybe,
yeah.
Maybe someday somebody will ride it. But the armor gives that direct prophecy in the Book of Boba Fett episode, talking about there's a prophecy that someone will ride the ancient mythosaur and Mandalore will be reborn. I didn't have a chance to rewatch it this morning, but what had occurred to me is, no, this is a part of the armor's growth. That prophecy didn't come true literally, but it came true spiritually. Bo-Katan saw the mythosaur, she rose, and she ushered in a new age of Mandalore. And the power of Grogu, maybe even sensing the mythosaur, and this idea that the mythosaur isn't, maybe someday, hey, maybe that's how Thrawn gets defeated. 800 Mandalorians riding a mythosaur. It could still spring out there. But for right now, there was a power to me in, like, it's a symbol. I believe the beast is literally down there, but
same.
It's the heart of Mandalore. It's alive. It can't be killed. You bomb it and it comes back to life, and everybody is feeling connected to it. And the prophecy came true, not in a literal way, but in a spiritual way. Great, powerful rebirth to me. I'm going to pause there because I've been saying a lot of things, and I'm curious your thoughts on them.
No, first of all, I really agree. I think the Mythosaur is there, and man, wouldn't it be fun to see Grogu, Bo-Katan, and Din just all riding Mythosaurs, or just one Mythosaur? Put a big saddle on there. Yeah. I just never expected that. I never expected that in a serious way, the way they played it. The prophecy was clearly stated, but, and we got the prophecy of the chosen one is something that's kind of real and embodied by a person, right? So I think we look at that. But this was always about spirit, always about the heart. And I was, like I said, this life persists is theme of this episode and maybe even the season and series so far. But I got kind of nothing beyond that other than emotions, other than Grogu just reaching out and feeling what's down there and knowing it's there. And I'm with you. So much has happened to this planet, to these people, to their culture, scattered like through the wind throughout the galaxy, like dust on the wind. And it's all about, no matter how lost, you got to find your way home, so to speak. The Din and Grogu conversation from earlier, but the Mythosaur is there. It was always there. And it's a spiritual awakening moment for them and something I can take for me, all into this theme of supersized trauma recovery, collective trauma recovery. And that, again, at the end of the day, what you need is already there and has always been there. And you just got to see it, feel it.
And I think it's made even more powerful by the specific villainy of Moff Gideon across these 3 seasons, that it wasn't just the Emperor raised his wrinkled finger and sent some bombers, that this was a person who was obsessed with Mandalore, wanted to take their culture and make it his own. On one hand, I feel like this episode it's explosive, it's fun, it's heartwarming, it's very direct, but like with the greatest Star Wars, with comparing it to the very first film, Star Wars, later A New Hope, there are these, you can enjoy it on this very direct surface level, cool action. The themes are real clear because the characters said them out loud.
Yeah.
But if you start to pull those threads, what do you find? And I'm not going to go deep into the real world stuff, but there's some powerful real world stuff for what the Mandalorians have gone through. It's not enough that their culture can't exist. It's that it needs to be eradicated entirely, but it has enough value to be both mocked and stolen by another person. There are examples in the real world of plenty of cultures, people, ways of life that are both less than, according to the people who are trying to dominate them, and also so powerful that the person who is saying it's less than also must take them and make them their own. Yeah. And the reason for this detour for me is I think that's part of what is the power of this sense of home and this sense of rebirth of, yep, the Mandalorians could live on Navarro. They could live on a Dinosaur River, and they are people, and they would find a path forward. But this is their ancient home where their culture was built. It's theirs, and that matters. And they got it back and are looking to the future is more powerful to me because somebody with echoes of absolute horror, absolute worst of what the real world can be, tried to take it from them and make it his own.
Yeah, no, and again, going to something I said earlier of how they did it and what needed to happen amongst them, it is absolutely a wonderful show of force to get some great fighting. There's almost too much action to measure in this episode, but it's they earned it because of how they came together and how they pushed forward and how they connected with that true sense of home. Yeah, there's so many real world examples, and you all can attach your own and push it there. But I'll say this: Moff Gideon is the person that goes to Coachella with a culturally appropriated outfit and wants to be that guy, wants to be that person. So, anyways,
he really is. He really, really is. Also on this theme of home and rebirth, it's a big moment that I feel like Grogu goes through a kind of a graduation, a rebirth. He is a Mandalorian. He chose to be one, but now he is reborn with a new name, a new role. The concrete. This is a father-son relationship. I'm not just your guardian watching over you. I am your father. And Grogu wants that he has now Din Grogu, a Mandalorian apprentice, is a sense of home, a sense of rebirth as well. How did you feel about that?
I love everything about it, though. I do want some clarification on the naming conventions here. I've seen this go around. Is it Ragnar Vizsla or is it Paz Ragnar? I want to know now. I think it's important. But I loved it. There's this talk of Grogu kind of being this balance in the middle, right? That's been out there. I think Dave been asked that in press interviews and all that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of that ends up being true. And I think one of the things I very much loved, I don't know about you, I got to imagine you loved it. That final shot of him lifting the frog out, not only is it just like a wonderful tip of the cap to Luke Skywalker and the things he's learned, is the tip of the cap of who he is and who he will continue to be. And this idea of you had Din that needed to be there, Bo-Katan that needed to be there. You got the survivors, you got the armor, you got the covert, you got the privateers, but you got Din, Grogu, and Bo-Katan all representing three ways to Mandalore. And I think it was important. And I think Grogu being at the center of this show, without a doubt, I think he's still very much at the center of it. Even though not every episode was focused on him this round. And so that's why I love that it ended with him kind of being, again, who he is enough, because that's who he is. And that's what he brings to the table. He is a Jedi. He is a Mandalore. He is now a son. He is, I'd say, a warrior. He's a lot of things. And now he gets some peace. And I love it.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And I do feel like it tied the season together. And now when I watch the season, I feel like I'm watching an ensemble show, which is a shift because it used to be Din and Grogu's show. But this episode was so Din and Grogu centered in the way they brought their story home, because their story is entirely tied to Bo-Katan's story, is entirely tied to the New Republic. Really worked for me in that final scene, particularly, when I first watched it, I really enjoyed it. And like, that's great. But, my head was spinning with, okay, is there going to be a little teaser for Ahsoka? Is Thrawn going to pop up and go, it's not done yet? All that kind of stuff. I was able to just really sit back and let it wash over me and soothe me how beautiful it is, because you rewatch chapter 4, Sanctuary, and see how Grogu and Din are pulling toward, wouldn't it be nice to just have this? But we can't. For them to have fought for, now they do. And the frog moment being attached to everything that Grogu has learned, that he's not trying to shove it in his mouth like he was in Sanctuary, but just playing with nature. And Din in that same, just sort of kicking back. He doesn't have a Space Coors Light, but it looks like he could. Just chilling until their next adventure. But really, really powerful, really soothing, really beautiful.
Well, I loved the cold open of this that ends. You mentioned it. I was moved by it as well. Of buddy, Grogu. This doesn't end. This pursuit that's been happening of us, this search for home, this search for some sense of peace. None of it ends until we take this man out. He's been at the center of it all. And it's beyond just an Imperial remnant. That's definitely a factor, right? Definitely what's going on. But it's this guy who got you, who tried to find you again, who held on to you, who took from you, who took from me. This is why I didn't leave you there at the sanctuary, because I knew it wouldn't end if we stayed there. It couldn't end. And this is how it's going to end, is if we take him out. Are you with me? I love that moment. I loved it. I thought it paid off well at the end.
Great growth for Din, too, because I think at one point Din would have been like, hide in the wall.
Yeah.
He's like, you're growing, you're strong. I need you. We need to do this together. And that little head nod from Grogu. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Final big picture for me that I want to discuss is, I do think there is a thread throughout the show, but really emphasized in this episode, about the importance of defense. The Mandalorians are strong. They are a strong people, but there are some Mandalorians who are always tempted to see that strength as is dominance. That's the main heart of the story of Pre-Vizsla versus the philosophy of Satine, right? The Satine is like, we're not getting involved in a pointless war, but you try to kill me, I'm going to end you. I'm going to defend myself. I'm strong. there's some pretty explicit lines about banter with Obi-Wan, right? Like, you were a pacifist. Not when people are trying to murder me.
Yeah.
They're not going to just back down. There's so much in this episode that was images of defense. Din, Bo-Katan, and Grogu all shielding one another. They're trying to protect Grogu. Grogu protects them from the flames. We've got Din's new role as really a defender of the Outer Rim. He's not going back to normal bounty hunter. He's going to a man he knows to be honorable, supporting a government that's trying their best but isn't doing well for the Outer Rim. And the things he offers to do is like chase down Imperial remnants, take care of problems. He's not saying to like the Snivian bartender, like, do you have somebody you don't like? I'll go. Do you have somebody who's a little too loud? Somebody who does bad karaoke in here? I'll
rub him out. Yeah,
I'll rub him out. He's offering to be a defender. There are rounds of applause for IG-11 is back as a marshal because the town of Navarro deserves that. They deserve someone who is, as IG-11 says, here to serve and protect the citizenry. There's this sense in many aspects about this is how to use strength. This is how to use power. It's an honorable way to use power of defense. And the biggest part of this, and the reason I really wanted to talk about is Grogu. You're waiting for him to use the Force.
Right.
We've seen him use the Force lashing out. We've seen him use it intuitively to help. Even in the first season, we have in the same episode he chokes Cara Dune because he thinks she's hurting his dad, and he just heals grief because he's in pain. We want to see the growth that he's had with Luke. We want to see when Luke took him on that forced climb up the reeds to just look at the beautiful serene horizon and feel the rhythm of nature, of life, of the Force that get through to Grogu. It seems like yes when he puts the Rancor to sleep, but this was the test. He could have been ripping the throats out of those Praetorian guards. Every way he uses the Force is defensive. They're running at me. I'm going to stop their blade from hitting me. They're about to kill my dad. I'm going to shove them to the side. And my absolute favorite. Oh, did you want to reach for that weapon? Nope.
Nope.
Yeah. Pushes Gideon back into the flames of his own anger and obsession. Everything that Grogu does is utterly defensive uses of the Force, and I just thought that was beautiful.
It's the way it should be, right? If you're Jediing, right? Yeah. But what did Bo-Katan said early on? You seem pretty good with the Force. No, I love it. I love what you're saying too. I don't have much more to add in terms of like how to use the power. It's this idea of that power and strength in it itself. I'm not talking about power in terms of ruling, but just strength, the ability to help others. Those aren't bad, right? And I think there's so many folks that misunderstand, not in the fandom of Star Wars, but just in the real world of like, are you saying I can't be a big, strong, tough dude? No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying what you're doing with it is hurting you and hurting all of us, right? There's ways to wield it, and we need certain folks to have strength and power and the ability to help others. Moff Gideon probably seems to be a pretty strong dude, man. But what are you doing with it? What are you doing with it, and how are you using it? And I love what you just said of tossed back at the flames of his own anger. What'd you say? That was beautiful, beautiful. Consumed by it, and I think that's why I thought there was we've seen Grogu kind of do this before, but to do it on this level was it was downright spiritual for me. I love that they take the time. Femi directing that scene perfectly. I think taking the time to really focus on the three of them in that fire bubble, that fire shield bubble. I thought it was really great. It was beyond just great action. It was purposeful and like I said, spiritual.
Yeah, they shielded him so he could shield them. It was lovely. Yeah, and I love. Yeah, I love what you're saying about the real world, and I think that is the slippery slope of. I think we all want to feel empowered. We all want to feel competent, and then there is that level of, do you want to feel powerful so you can feel powerful, or do you want that power so it can be there to help when it's needed.
Mm-hmm.
It is fighting temptations to slide into real world examples. Not so much because I don't want to talk about them, but because I want to keep talking about Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
But I think
Mm-hmm.
we can see echoes of this in the real world where people say, I want this power for defense. And like, do you or do you want to feel powerful and you're looking for an excuse to show that power?
Yeah.
Or are you actually, to me, this is one of the reasons that I always love Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like, in his perfect world, things are in balance and he never needs to fly. He never needs to ignite that blade.
Right.
He doesn't have a longing for this. He wants to sit in a bar and, probably rank albums with Dexter Jetster. That's his ideal. He gets that blade out when he needs it, when he needs to. And to me, that's real power. Not, I need to make myself feel powerful, so I'm going to find an excuse to ignite this blade.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, moving along. Do you want to talk a little bit about the title? This is The Return. How do you feel about that?
Look, I'll say this. I'll admit to this. Talk about speculate responsibly. I got a little wild in this moment. I went, oh, Thrawn is coming back. And that's what I thought it meant. I was really into it. And then I think pretty clearly the idea of, I focus most about the return of Mandalore and the Mandalorians. But I think you could apply it to a lot of spots. But I loved it. Again, that's why I love that life persists scene. I thought it paid off that title well.
Yeah, I really liked it. And I meant the exact same thing when it flashed. I was like, oh, cool. Well, there's at least going to be a teaser with Thrawn. I'm happy to let that grow. Thrawn will come when Thrawn is going to supposed to be here. And we know that he is going to be arriving soon. August, in fact. We can put it on our calendars. I really like the return. I think it connects to the history of our titles in Star Wars, the big films of Return, Revenge, Rise, but also that's been the tradition with The Mandalorian of a redemption, rescue, and now the return. But I also think it has a real power that does connect to Return of the Jedi, this idea that is baked into the hero's journey, which the hero's journey is not everything, is more and more people are discussing, which is great, but it is such a part of the DNA of Star Wars. The big idea in the hero's journey is that you return home having changed. And I'd argue that's storytelling in general. You start with stasis, you go through conflict, and there's resolution. And in most stories, it is you return to this stasis, but you have changed. And I feel like that is what's going on in this episode. The Mandalorians returned home, but they have been changed by the journey there. They value home more. They have a different perspective on home. They have a different motivation to work together and be stronger together and not fall back into civil war. Din has a new home on Navarro, and he was offered it at the beginning of the season, but he couldn't take it then, and he can now because he has changed for his journey, for his return to home.
I love focusing on that side of it, particularly with Mandalore, right? It's going to be different. It needs to be different. It feels it'll be different. They understand now. They understand why they continue to fall for generations upon generations, but maybe, just maybe, they have a better understanding of their place in the galaxy, and maybe how others will react. Who knows? The Mandalorians have always seemed to be like a prickly pair of a group, right? They are going to your point. That you've made throughout the season a few times is the image of a Mandalorian, is it the image of death or the image of salvation? Just go back to season 1 of the Mandalorian when Din's walking around and Mando, everyone's looking at you and he's getting his armor back from the armor. And that means something because it sends a little shiver of terror down people's spines there, no matter how many spines they have. But that doesn't feel the vibe now, right? It doesn't feel like that's where they are. It is truly a little bit of molting has happened on the bird's feathers here of the Mandalorians. And I kind of like that. We'll see how it plays out. We'll see if they get involved and how it would seem like they're going to get involved in the New Republic era. But Mandalore is this thing in the corner, and they do what the Mandalorians do. They're about war, armor, and fighting. Might be a different vibe now. And I think that's, again, what you're saying, what the title's talking about as well.
Yeah. It's very interesting to see what the storytelling of the resurgent Mandalore will be. But for now, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be back to talk some of the canon stuff. We're going to talk some of the action. A little bit of action in this episode. I limited myself greatly on the moments that I picked for favorites, comedy, and some speculating, hopefully responsibly, about the future. All that in a moment. And we are back to continue our discussion of Chapter 24 of The Mandalorian, The Return. We are returning to talk about canon, lore, connections to other stories. There was some interesting stuff here. This was not, I think, as packed as some episodes, but I want to talk about the lore, larger lore of Star Wars, but also the lore of The Mandalorian finally having concrete answers about the experiments of Gideon, or the experiments of Gideon. So we get the final confirmation. He was working on cloning himself. Mm-hmm. He was trying to give himself an army of himself with force powers, and I would assume also Beskar armor. I think it has been pretty clearly delineated now, everything we've seen from the initial pursuit of Grogu, the job that the client was hiring all the bounty hunters for, to the facility on Navarro, to this facility on Mandalore, was not directly connected to Palpatine's return or the creation of Snoke, that it might be using the same technology, the same threads of research from the Kaminoans, but that is not what Gideon was doing. Gideon was making himself, and the Palpatine, the Snoke of it all, that is Brendel Huck's Project Necromancer. Would you agree that that is the story now, or am I making leaps?
No, I think it was a wonderful confirmation. It's not a contest, but I just think we've always kind of felt around here. This is about Moff Gideon and his relationship to Mandalore, the Mandalorians, and the Mandalorian. And that will maybe now include Grogu. I think that's always been it. I think but like we said, it doesn't mean that the Empire at large wouldn't want to take what he's doing, or what I thought the other way around. There was the quote from Brendel, well, not quoting him because I can't remember exactly, but he's basically kind of said, correct me if I'm wrong, yeah, by the way, you took Pershing for your own stuff. What are you doing over there? Like we had him for our stuff, like we got something bigger going on. And it was always about what he was doing for himself. It's fun to speculate, obviously, about other things. And I had definitely left room for the possible connection to Snoke, and for later on a little bit more of the connection to Palpatine. I look, it's still possible as the series goes forward and you spend time more with Thrawn, Hux, Paleon. I still think Circus's Snoke is not out of the question at some point. I think it's possible, but I think for what this show, again, what it set out to do was his quest for power, his quest for self versus them. And it just made a lot of sense. And it was also downright freaky.
Yeah, super freaky. I really liked it. I really like that clarity, because it will change rewatching the Mandalorian with that. It's always fun to watch Star Wars with. I remember you and I talking right before The Rise of Skywalker came out and being like, let's watch The Last Jedi one more time, because we'll never watch it exactly the same way again. Mm-hmm. And that's maybe a divisive example, since people have such strong opinions about Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. But hey, it was true when I was a kid, and I knew Empire Strikes Back, and I was waiting for what happened in Return of the Jedi, and didn't know Luke and Leia were siblings, and now I never won't again.
Yeah.
It'll be fun to rewatch Mandalorian with this knowledge. It's got me excited. I want the story of the First Order, and how much did Hux know about Palpatine? How much did anybody know who Snoke was? How much agency does Snoke have? All those great questions we've talked about. I'm excited for that storytelling. I'm excited to talk about them, and I'm excited that that's not this story. That's over there. Connected, but a different story, and I'm really, really looking forward to getting into it. I like the way it was doled out. They even had it in the previously on for this episode of Hux being like, "Yeah, you're doing some cloning stuff," and getting me like, "Me? That's your obsession. I don't know what you're talking about."
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that clarity.
Yeah.
I do want to ask you. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, just yes, indeed. Good clarity.
I want to ask your opinion. I think I like the clarity. There is I want to engage with what I'm presented with, but I also want to be honest when something bumps for me. There's a part of me that was like, I'm glad that we have the answer, but did it feel a little anticlimactic to not have some half functioning Gideon clones, zombie clones shambling out, roughly using the Force, and not even fully, right? Just sort of not having it quite work yet, and they're reaching out and doing some horrible Force push, but their arms explode when they do it.
I think you could have absolutely. That's a good what if. I think that absolutely could have been fun. I think the eye pop was freaky enough, but yeah, having Giancarlo Esposito stumble down a hallway as one of his own clones could have been fun. So maybe we'll get that deleted too.
Maybe we will. But I also want to ask you how much. This is one of those times where we're getting the information from a character, and is it true? Pershing was really clear on, I'm almost broken through, and I'm so close I can do it. Even Gideon, I wrote down his actual quote here. I'm scrolling up on my notes to see it. My clones were finally going to be perfect. The best parts of me, but improved by adding the one thing I never had, the Force. I was isolated the potential to wield the Force and incorporate it into an unstoppable army, and you smothered them before they could draw their first breath. So he's talking big like they were almost there. Do you believe them?
That's a good question. No, I don't. I think he has some dreams. He's not getting there. Yeah, I think because it's the idea of are all those troopers there clones of him? I think that's a great idea. I think the answer to me at this point after this episode is no. I think he's all bluster. He's all about desire versus actual results.
Yeah. Part of me is just hearing such an interesting pulpy idea, and that the eye pop was great. There's a part of me is like, ooh, well, show me. But I can also see the perspective that it's a big bit of storytelling and world building. The idea of stealing somebody's midichlorians or replicating them and making them work in this way. It's a real unnatural, dark science secrets only the Sith knew. And would I want it to be just like a blip in this show versus have room to explore that lore, that perspective, that does that work? Can that work? That feels unnatural. Obviously, Snoke comes about in some way, and the creation of not Chad Palpatine, Dathan Palpatine. He's a disappointment because he doesn't have the Force, but his daughter naturally does. So they're already delving into some of that relationship between cloning and midichlorians and all that. But I do feel like it's kind of, it needs to be handled well. So there's also a part of me that's like, maybe I didn't need to see dark side Force zombies without having the elbow room to truly reckon with it.
Yeah, well, that's fair. I'm good.
Do you have a strong opinion now that I have contradicted myself about my own desire to see dark side Force zombies?
No. I like where it ended, and to me, what I think where I stopped was when they just exploded the clone tubes. I was like, good job. There's no mystery anymore. They're gone. They're dead. And I like that. Yeah, so I think I stopped there.
I did really like putting a button on that part of the story, and the part of the story that motivated Din and Grogu coming together at all, kind of a big part of the story. Yeah, well, yeah. There's solution, right? It's solution. I just said up top, I was satisfied. It was like there was that, there's the reveal. There's a little bit of Rey going to the dark side mirror cave, right? Like, ooh, who's going to be in there? Is it Andy Serkis? No, it's Gideon. Oh, yeah, of course, yes, makes a lot of sense. And then it's like, not one of them is not going to crawl out of the rubble with a clone hand, and Gideon Mark II is alive. No, they're gone. Yeah, and I do like the theory that Gideon is full of himself, that they were close. Like, no, they weren't, dude. Yeah. Let's talk about tubes. Yeah. They're really good at bulging scary eyes, which I like that a lot. Let's talk about the din of it all. So we get a couple things in that this canon idea that it is a normal part of the creed that you go from foundling to Mandalorian apprentice. and that you must leave Mandalore and take your apprentice on his journeys, just as your teacher did for you. So there was the, oh, cool, Din Djarin prequel. Who is his teacher? Like,
Yeah.
a lot of fun canon thoughts there. But then, of course, there was the din of it all, of the naming convention, and you already brought it up. And this is one of those things that, like, sure, let's talk about it. But I'm sure by the time we've finished recording, there'll be some definitive answer that the entire internet already knows.
I wonder about it. It's just not the way I would go with it. So yeah, there you go.
Would you have expected Grogu Djarin? I
would have expected Grogu Djarin, but at one point in 1978, I would have thought it would have been Darth Djarin versus Din Skywalker. So, I was a little pleasantly confused by it, I guess.
Yeah, I was initially like, oh, and the way I'm thinking now, and I can't wait to finish recording and immediately be corrected by the internet or Jon Favreau. But the way I'm taking it is maybe Din is not Din's first name, but this is a Darth thing. Din is the title for a Mandalorian of Creed.
Okay.
That it's a title.
I like that. I like a wandering Mando.
Yeah, or either that, or the naming convention is different between the different creeds, because we do hear Vizsla as a name of continuity. Kryze appears to be a last name in sort of Western tradition, and Vizsla seems to be as well.
Yeah,
but maybe a part of the creed is no in the older Mandalorian ways, just like in other cultures on the Earth, it's the name that comes first. That is the family name.
Well, yeah, it just comes down. Is it the armorer Sheila or Sheila the armorer? We'll find out.
The is a title, not her first name. Yeah, why isn't she sharing her name? Oh, there's still so much I want to know about the armor.
I hope to get more of the armor. I really would love. I was really thinking that there'd be a moment where we'd see the mask come off, and Emily Swallow would be, there acting, and she did so wonderful with the mask on. But yeah, I kind of still want that to happen.
Mask pops off. It is I, Deborah Vizsla. I know all the Rookcast theories. But,
and the Rookcast of it all too. Sure, but no, not needed.
Yeah. Very fun. I think it's one of those things where I definitely don't want to get over distracted by, it could be a title. It could be the Mandalorians have this sect of Mandalorians have a different naming convention. Ultimately, we'll find the answer, and ultimately the meaning is that their connection has deepened. It's a literal adoption. It's a new name. It's a new goal of your apprentice has to go on his journeys, which that's one of the other things that made me feel like, this is tying a bow on many parts of the story, but now it's rebirth and we're looking ahead to new stories.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was started in this season, but not put a bow on at all, is Grogu not just going in his mind of like, I was rescued from the Jedi Order, and then there were some dark times that I don't think about.
Yeah.
Or let other people in my mind see, and now everything's great. But saying like, Grogu, to move forward, you got to reckon with your past. And I feel like this, take your apprentice on his journeys, see the galaxy, but also like be tested.
Yeah.
Go back into your past. Remember that when Kelleran Beck delivered you to Jar Jar Binks and then died. And that's just my headcanon right now. We'll see.
Delivered him to Jar Jar Binks and died. Let's work all the theories in.
Yep. I'm putting those both up there. Speculate responsibly about Kelleran Beck and Jar Jar Binks, but we'll see. The mention of Grogu's parents, it felt very straightforward. It felt like this great, I don't know, for me, it really felt like the armor was almost like taking Din, like the armor knew the answer, and the armor was taking Din through his lessons of like, the other part of the creed to counter the part of the creed that I'm spouting. Are you going to say it? The way she says, yes, but his parents are far from here if they're even alive. Yeah. And Din is like, I know the part of the creed that is the answer to that, and I'm willing to do it. Because to me, she seems happy and content with this. But how do you feel about that? How do you feel about the mention of Grogu having parents? Are you concerned that that's going to be a real discussion point in the fandom of, He is Yoda and Yettl's son.
Oh boy, I hadn't even thought about that. I got to mute those words too now. God bless you. Oh man, everyone stop with that stuff. Yeah. Here's the thing, not to get too grumpy. The first second watching it late last night, like it was like, oh, is that going to be season 4? We got to find Grogu's parents. Yeah, for 2 seconds I thought that. I take it as, and I think you might be someone in the same ballpark as me, as exactly what you're saying of her. I don't think she knows who his parents are. No one knows who his parents are. The Jedi might have some record of it, but no one, no one knows at this point, unless we get some other information later on. I think she's doing exactly what you said. But come on, his parents are far from here, right? Maybe gone. So what are you going to do? And he gives the answer. And her response was one of my favorite. This is the way. This is the way, she says. Mm-hmm. And I think that was what was going on there.
Yeah. I know. I really agree with that. I think it's a fascinating, interesting conversation. And I feel like her saying his parents are far from here, if they're even alive, is the standard thing that she would say in a situation. I don't think it's the armorer having some explicit knowledge of how this species is produced. Yeah. I still have the absurd, jokey headcanon that they're not born. Every 50 years, a new member of this species is plopped out of the ooze flower on the growth tree on Yothon. I kind of want these characters to be even more weird and mystical, and I kind of don't ever want to fully know myself. Yeah. But if that becomes the quest for Grow Dad and Grow Mom, so be it.
Grow Dad and Grow Mom. I'm good for that. I'm good with that too.
Also in shocking canon, R5D4 has rocket legs.
I kind of love that. I love it. As someone who screamed in 2002, we learned of R2. Mm-hmm. I was very much one of those idiots that was like, well, we've never seen them before. Like, yeah, you get sand into them, jerk. Shut up, sit down, watch the movie. And I'm saying that to myself. I love that R5 is like, that's just kind of standard issue and minor operating again. Thanks, Pelly.
Yep, thanks, Belly. Yeah, that's what I thought, and it was like, oh, how far we've come. If this had to come out in 2005, that would have been there'd have been angry car videos about R5D4's rocket legs. Final thing for me that I picked up with canon is hey, does anybody in Carson Teva's Delphi unit besides our Lasat friend Zeb? Does anybody do anything but drink? They got a lot of time for drinking. The director gang is back in the bar.
Look, they're, you got Gideon before us. Yeah, you're all here playing snooker and drinking. And I had the headphones on for the third viewing. Filoni's in the background. Trapper Wolf says Plo Koon at one point. You also give it a listen. He's rambling about something. It's almost like they went, Dave, just talk about Star Wars. And he starts just talking about jet. You hear something behind it. And very clearly he says Plo Koon at one point. So Dave, we heard you. So yeah, they're all busy doing that. Spit shining their Y-wings while Din and Grogu are doing the work there.
You just beat me to it. Like we're joking. To me, it's just it's narrative, convenience and all that. They just got back from another mission. I get it. I get it. That's fine. I did not pick up on the Trapper Wolf talking about.
You need headphones. Yep, you need headphones, but it's there.
Yeah, well, I am gonna do some audio detective work. I want to hear that because now I want it to be that in universe, Trapper Wolf is a Jedi nerd who has learned about the Jedi of the past, and he's like, Plo Koon is the one who discovered that lady that you hear talking about Ahsoka sometimes. Pretty cool.
It's perfect because they're like, who's Zeb always talking about? Ahsoka. Well, okay, so Ahsoka was. Let me tell you, and yeah, that's exactly what happened.
He's just like, yeah, he's like, now we don't know. Mace Windu's body was never found. Maybe he's a Mace Windu truther. But Kit Fisto definitely died up there. Yeah,
love it.
Good stuff. Plo Koon, maybe he survived over Catanomodia. I don't know. Let's talk action and let's see how long it takes. I thought the action was great. I thought this was an episode that, like I said at the top, there was meaning in the action. The characters were making choices that made sense for the characters. The scale, the spectacle of it was awesome. And also for me, it was one of those sort of replanting the flag that the action isn't something that you kind of got to throw some in because it's part of the stew. It was more like, this is a part of the fun. This is a part of the thrill. This is a part of the DNA of Star Wars that is, the myth, the family, the ideas, but also, laser swords and jetpacks and blasters, and it's just big and bizarre and fun, and it is valuable in and of itself. How did you feel about the action overall? And then we can talk about any specific moments.
Big, sweeping, epic, but also small in scale so many times with some of the wonderful fights. And this series has a lot of like quiet moments for a lone gunslinger going around the galaxy. There is a lot of quieter moments. There is a lot of awkward little comedy beats and everything. And I think it's helpful that the show explodes out with some not violence but action and the thrill of it and the pew 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 of it all. But it all said so much. And I, like you said earlier, going back to the end of season 1 to now, it's growing in leaps and bounds on what you're capable of doing. So I thought there was great tension throughout. Loved it.
Yeah, and I thought that it was really well executed. The big sweeping, the ships, all the commandos in the Mandalorians jetpacking, having a jetpack gang fight, absolutely great. And then the I always like when you can really see the character in the action. I love seeing Din's style, Din's technique. It was all real clear from the more one-on-one fisticuffs. So with that in mind, you got some favorite individual action beats?
Yeah, I do. Not to bore everyone with a long list here, but I want to go to an overall one first. I really want to shine a light on Lateef Crowder, who, without a doubt, was probably doing a lot of the heavy lifting for Din in this episode. That's kind of his speciality. And Brendan Wayne does such a good job in other versions of Din. And this is a season without Pedro's face. Mr. Last of Us is out there busy working and getting called a daddy. So it seems like he wasn't on set this time around. I'm okay with that more than I ever was before. I was not okay with that in season 1, if you remember my grumpiness. But I really love the fighting. The opening fight was some of the best stuff. There's some great just kicks and just a lot of stuff going on. And I think for the most part, that is Lateef Crowder. And I just, kind of wanted to thank him for that. It was some of my favorite action.
Yeah, I love that. It was the celebration in Anaheim in 2022 where they brought them out on stage, and Pedro Pascal really said, "Let the three of us are the Mandalorian," and they put them in the credits. So I think it is right that we highlight them and that we celebrate them. And this was clearly a lot of action. There's the scene where I think where Mando's kind of scouting, trying to find where Gideon is based, and he's got both of the stolen blasters up, but one is kind of back. It's just cool.
Yeah,
just cool, and all his action is cool. So yeah. Some specific moments for me. This is mostly chronological, but I had to start with my very favorite. This is, to me, the most earth-shattering, lore-changing confirmation in the entire episode is that it's not just Boba Fett who has knee darts or knee rockets. The Bo-Katan knee rockets. First, she does the cool slide across the landing pad to disorient the commandos on her back. As if that wasn't cool enough, bam, there come the knee rockets. Oh, I cheered. I love that moment.
I love some knee rockets, man. I'm there with you.
Yeah, knee rockets. Best ever. Couple other specific moments for me. I really liked the shot, and maybe some people, I could imagine it not working for people. Fair enough. But I love the shot of the gauntlet fighters going at that great energetic diagonal angle in shooting into the clouds, and then the TIE interceptors passing up through the clouds at that same angle. It's just great.
Oh yeah, no. Anytime you can invoke kind of the there's too many of them vibes from Jedi, even if it's not direct, I love it. There's so many great shots of ships flying, and you and I, you've said it before. The season 1, again, some of the limitations. Some of the ships didn't look that great to me in space, and that's still sometimes a little bit of a struggle with some of these shows. can you get it to cinematic quality? And I think this episode delivered all the time. And a lot of people love what you and I talked about last week. We got to see it again, but the TIE Interceptors is bats, the Bat Brigade. It just worked.
Yeah, the whooshing, whooshing was up on the subtitles almost the entire episode.
Good whooshing.
A lot of whooshing. I got a few more moments, but I want to kick it back to you. What do you got?
I do love the Grogu saving his dad was wonderful on a lot of levels, wonderful thematically, like we discussed earlier, but just a great thing. And I'm not tired of yes, no yet. Clearly, I'm not tired of it. I want more of it. Give me more. Give me more. I want a Grogu in IG-12 with voice sound so I can annoy my dogs with it too. So I just love that scene, and it was a powerful scene. Like, he has skills, and he was desirous to save his dad, and I loved it. Again, seeing them work together.
Yeah, both times that he saves him and says no is so powerful, so great. And I'm kind of fine that they smashed up IG-12, so you don't have to be looking forward to season 12 of like the yes no bit is so great and so powerful. And I'm glad that they used a bunch of different iterations of it, permutations of it, and then smash it up.
Yep. Move on.
Yeah. So a couple things for me, that whole lower the shield video game sequence. If video games were still made the way they used to be back in the day, where they were direct tie-ins rather than more world building, and you knew like about a year later we're going to get the video game where we play through Mandalorian season 3, I'd be like, I am so looking forward to and dreading the lower the shield sequence, which would be 10 times as long. There'd be 8 commandos in every one of those, and there'd be like no health re-up, so you just got to make it through the entire lower the shield sequence, and you'd be proud of yourself, but also, oh man, it was great. There's a million little moments in there I could pick, but my ongoing obsession of action being better when people can fall from high places. This is a great episode to it. I loved the moment where Din was like, I have 2 goals. I want to defeat you all and take all of your weapons. I love when he throws the knife into the throat and the person falls, and he just barely misses grabbing their blaster before the commando falls. Yeah. Beautiful.
They get wonderful tension throughout.
So I love that. I love the jetpacking down into the abyss with almost a West Side Story, the commandos. The commandos versus the mandos, the sharks and the jets. But in particular, there's that perspective shot. There's a lot of great perspective shots in this, but it's almost like the camera's mounted on the back of the commando, and we see from their perspective, the armor comes zooming in, the hammer smashing down. Beautiful terror. Yeah,
the hammer of the armor is high on a lot of people's lists, and it was just great. The sound, satisfying. Because I think it was last week she kind of seemed unarmed almost, and I think we were asking her, like, I wonder if she got the hammers on it. So when she goes flying out, I love that they hold on her. I love that she watches everyone jumps, and you're like, oh, is she going to stay? Nope, she's going. And just to see the hammers at her side, I was like, oh, this is going to be brutal. And it was. And there you go. So I still have some armor questions, but I'm rooting for her, and I'm on her side.
Yeah. No, I'm still, I still have a big asterisk by the armor for myself and like to see more storytelling. But right now I'm choosing to engage with the story I was presented with, that she chose to bend and make better choices. And therefore I'm going to allow myself to enjoy watching her smash Imperials with a hammer. This is in action, but it's also just like a shot. There's the shot when the Praetorians are advancing on Grogu in IG-12, and Grogu is backing up, and just as the door is closing, he's trapped in there. IG-12 is flailing. Or just it's one of those shots. I always pick up on shots in Star Wars where what are the shots I would love if it was a different era and there was less Star Wars, and I rewatched every bit of new Star Wars as much as I rewatched the original and the prequels, and you can just like obsess on one shot and talk about it, and then you realize that shot lasts for half a second, but I'm obsessed with it.
A whole lifetime.
I've seen it. Yeah, a whole lifetime passes in that one moment, and that was one of those shots of like, if I had the room in my life to watch this episode 70 times, that would be one of the shots I'd be obsessed with.
You're coming home from school and you finish your homework so you can watch it again, or Saturday night friends. Yeah, this is why entire fandoms our entire lives as fans are built on those kind of little moments. And I love when you find them now, even though it's processed a little different. We don't have as much time. It's still the same.
Yeah, exactly. I got 2 more action moments. Do you have any more?
There's a great Cosca Reeves slide and shot moment. There's a lot of great sliding in this episode. Love that there. I do want to highlight Axe's near holdo maneuver. I thought he, for a second, was going to maybe go out. I'm glad he survived. I think he's a great performer, by the way. I think he's one of the better actors in the series. And would love to see more of X-Wolves. And again, as someone who spent a week, well, a little less because I watched the episode closer to this one, going, that dude's a spy. I'm glad he's not. And again, I'm glad there's a happy ending. And everyone is, as we wanted him to be, good. And I thought he was wonderful throughout. And I love that entire sequence, including him escaping.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can see a version of the story where Gideon is trying to break the Mandalorians, and he's got someone on the inside to make them doubt stronger together. Like, I can see why we were interested in that, why my people guessed that, but I also appreciate that not having that just has this directness, this energy of everybody taking risks, everybody being there, and I did like him shooting the window out and getting out and living to fight another day and to scream for Mandalore a bit later.
Yeah. Look, I just think going back to last week's episode, I think Favreau should have put the title, chapter 23, The Spies, and then in parentheses, like the Bible. And then a lot of the
The Spies. Yeah. Hashtag Google it.
Hashtag the Book of Numbers.
Yeah. I wanted to highlight a couple of the Grogu moments, and the Grogu running is amazing, flipping, but then needing to defend himself, the force pushes, the stopping the blade coming down. The shot in particular that I absolutely love is toward the end when the one Praetorian is reaching for their weapon and he's just like,
Yeah, it's great.
And it's great. Just slides the weapon away. It is like the picture of Jedi defense. And honestly, in some ways, the way Grogu and Din works together is sometimes the way I'm like, why didn't the Jedi work like that in the Clone Wars more? Like in the Clone Wars, the Jedi are leading the troops, which fair enough. The leaders, they're up front, they are deflecting. But there's always been a part of me is like, not to send the clones in like fodder, but like just sit up in a tree and move crap and let the clones clean up, because like, oh, I see a tank aiming at them. Nope. I'll move that one to the side. Oh, I see that person's the sniper. Nope. Move that out of the way. And I love that. That's kind of what Grogu was doing, of like, I'm just going to turn these Praetorian guards into just 3 clowns, so that Din can get busy shooting specifically their feet and necks, which I love that he had such an obsession with feet and necks in his shots.
He did. No, what I love about the Grogu force pushes and pulls on stuff is it was very much of what he's capable at this time, right? Because I think there's a moment of like, oh, is Grogu going to wreck shop here? Is he going to? Nah, like that's not where he is. So I love his little legs running away, the fear, but he's getting at it. Like I love that. And he's so brave in his actions, but his actions are of what he's capable of right now. So I thought it would play out perfectly.
Yeah, I thought it was great. And final moment for me is also Grogu. It took the second viewing for me to realize he was doing a slide before he did the Gideon force push. And he does the "you can't pick that weapon up" to Gideon too. Grogu, I love you. All right. Do you have any favorite moment of comedy, whimsy, weirdness, anything like that?
I mean, there's just a lot of Grogu reactions, yes, no, but all. But his little feet are all the comedy and whimsy I needed for this episode. Not a lot through the episode. It was focused on other things, but that stuff really worked for me. Yeah,
mostly Grogu moments for me. The excessive Bacta spray from IG-12 to Din's head. And I'm all right. That was very funny. Very in character for Grogu. I liked seeing a mouse droid actually catch someone and have their siren.
Oh yeah, I like the little sirens. Yeah, and like
other mouse droids.
I like that R5 when he takes off, he kind of knocks one off the cliff too. So,
obviously Grogu's flip running is action comedy. There's a caption where it claims he's laughing.
Yeah, no, he is. Yeah, he is. I love that moment. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And then there's the beat when they walk into the Adelphi bar, where it seems like he's like, okay, I'm a Mandalorian apprentice now. I'm Din Grogu. I can't be floating around in a pram or walking around in a droid. I just gotta walk faster. I just gotta walk faster because he is double timing on those little feet.
Mm-hmm. And like me, running for the appetizers first. So I appreciate that.
I look forward to seeing you do a force leap the next time you're at Sizzler.
It's going to happen.
All right. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you wanted to?
I think we put it all there. I mean, we'll have time to kind of process the entire season. I actually can't wait to rewatch this one. I think you're right. You'll never see things the same way again. I think a lot of things will become more clear. I will kind of die on the hill that this was a tremendously focused season that said, here's what we're trying to accomplish. Here's what we're about, and we're going to do it. And I think this season in the end nailed that. Doesn't mean everything is perfect along the way. Doesn't mean don't want more armor conversations or have some tough questions for the armor. Doesn't mean that. But I think when the endings happen and the final fade out with that little spot happen, I sighed a relief of peace for them as well, and therefore it kind of worked for me.
Yeah, I really agree with you. I think this season was extremely focused in its ideas. I think it raised questions, like we talked about, of change, of what is a Mandalore, what is home, what is the value of home, about cultural appropriation. Don't mean that as a joke at all. That's what Gideon has been doing for the last 3 seasons, and the story of rebirth, an attempted rebirth, and being pulled back from it across the galaxy. Those themes are going to continue. I understand for some people, it might not feel as focused narrative because we spend a whole episode on Coruscant with the New Republic. That there are episodes where it feels like, okay, this whole season's going to be about Din trying to take a bath. Wait, no, now it's about Bo-Katan trying to be a leader. And like, I understand for some people that they might feel like the plot was not as linear and as direct and clear, but I feel like it's telling a bigger story, is telling an ensemble story. The ideas, I agree with you, are super tight, crystal clear. And in retrospect, I think if you go back and watch this season and watch it with the big question of, can the Mandalorians come together, and watch the building blocks of what happens to make the armor change, what happens to make Bo-Katan change, how often is Din the catalyst of those things, as you pointed out, and I've seen people on social media point out. I think this is a season that might not ever be people's favorite, but I think it will reward being rewatched.
Yeah, I think for me, there's continued growth in all the characters. That's what you want. But there's a steadfast nature to Din in this season that I think I appreciate as it went on. And you're right, he's at the center of a lot of emotional things, theme wise, all that kind of stuff that goes beyond the plot, like you said. So there you go. The debates, I'm sure, will rage on.
Exactly, and I do think it is powerful to note this is the first season with no Pedro Pascal face, right?
Yeah.
And you can go. I think there's a lot of interesting things to talk about. We're not going to have a big conversation now because we have shattered the 2-hour mark. That could be about Pedro Pascal's well-deserved success. There's interesting conversations to be had there about did the first 2 seasons feel like this is a path toward him taking the helmet off and leaving it off because that's where true connection lies. But I agree with you. I feel like the story of this season is that he is steadfast. He knows what the way means to him, and he believes in it, and this is a part of it, and he is choosing that path, and he's steadfast. All he wants is to keep his child safe, to train his child, to bring Mandalorians back together, to have them have a home. That's what he wants. That's what he fights for. That's what he gets. It is a steadfast season for the character. And there are, I think, really interesting questions to raise about the helmet that are both real world with Pedro Pascal and also deeply in the story of Star Wars of what does that helmet mean. And I look forward to having more of those conversations.
More conversations indeed. We'll see.
Yeah. Final thing I'll say for me, I really did enjoy the season. I think there are some moments where if you get too caught up in hoping for a specific thing to happen, it might distract you from what's really there. I'm totally fine with it if people just, it doesn't work for them. They don't enjoy what's there. And I will say for myself, I do think the show has laid some really interesting things on the table, particularly with the armor and what the entirety of the creed is, how it relates to the Death Watch. Great, we got the information that they're a splinter group, but what of their beliefs do they share? How does Din feel about the fact that a lot of the galaxy was hidden from him?
Mm-hmm.
All those things are interesting, and I understand if people were expecting those things to be more dealt with, frustrated by them. I am choosing to be hopeful that they will be dealt with in the future and want to enjoy the story that is being told. And in terms of the things that are being put on the table for New Republic, I got no issue with that because we got a lot of storytelling coming from this era, and that's going to be part of it.
Yeah, no, I think there's still some answers I need for the New Republic stuff, and clearly we are now in this new era and heading towards more, and I'm excited to get there.
Yeah, and seeing Mon Mothma in that whole council in the trailer for Ahsoka feels like Ahsoka is going to be going to the head of the New Republic, not not Tuttle. I like Timothy Meadows, but not stressed Tuttle, or people in the data pit centers, of course, aren't. But I think we might get a little bit more of that perspective that a lot of us are hungering for, of what is keeping them so busy. Why isn't Mothma all over this? I think there's a chance that we'll get more of that in Ahsoka.
Absolutely, and hopeful about that too.
Yeah. Any predictions or hopes for the next season of The Mandalorian? It is already written, according to interviews with Favreau himself.
Yeah, look, I think I'm intrigued by these adventures and where they could take them and who that could put them in front of, Din and Grogu. And like you said, it's not going to go smooth, not going to go easy. And I still think there's a lot of those revelations to come. And I'm just open to it. I'm open to it. I'm excited that they got to end this chapter of the story and be clear about it. And say we're ready for something different. And again, like I said up top, the show as well as the characters slowly became more aware and plugged in with the larger state of the galaxy and larger state of the storytelling in this era. So now we're there. We get to explore that with them.
Mm-hmm. I'm so excited for it. I love how much of a wonderful resolution this feels like of this chapter of storytelling. But like I said, I think it's looking forward to a lot of great questions. Is chapter 4 going to have a little bit more of that season 1, season 2 episode of the week? Din is offered a job. Does he want it or not? That's a question of honor. How tied to the overall world building of the New Republic era will it be? Do we follow the trials of a resurgent Mandalore? Is there a literal reemergence of the mythosaur, or is the prophecy fulfilled? And that's it. Definitely a lot on the table for Grogu's development, facing his past trauma, seeing more of Kelleran Beck. All these interesting ideas are there. And final thing for me, I'm really interested in this idea that Din and Carson Teva can go like, we did it. We stopped that Imperial remnant, and go, oh, that's great. They have every reason to believe they stopped that. And maybe there'll be more out there, but they don't have a sense of the true scale.
They weren't at that meeting. They don't know that there's more. They don't know.
They didn't see the Shadow Council. Yeah. So I'm excited for the future in really a lot of ways. Yeah. So final thing, as always, what action figure or merch would you want inspired by this episode, Ken?
I don't collect Funkos much anymore, but I do want a Grogu Din Bo-Katan Fire Bubble Funko Pop action scene. It'll go nice. I always mention every now and then I have the Daenerys Targaryen Jorah Mormont final stand in episode 3. I think it's 3 of season 8. So Jorah's last stand, and there's flames on it. So I'd love to put that one right next to it.
Oh, get them Funko Pop engines a turning. We're gonna make that. Yeah. I want an energy shield playset. I just love how much that's a set piece. It comes with they're making an R5D4 with the Mandalorian, but it could come with some of those commandos. Come with exclusive Din with a white jetpack that he stole from the commando. That's the exclusive Din that I'll pay $20 for. That's going to come with this energy shield playset. Final thing for me is it would be fun to have some target practice, like a laser tag kind of set where you get to be Din Djarin, but your goal is to just shoot people in the feet, which he does constantly.
Love that.
Din's got a foot fetish. Oh, is he on like foot websites? No, he really loves shooting Imperials in the foot. He's got a thing for it.
Love that. Love that. Be great.
That's his quest next season. I'm looking for some Imperials. I'm going to shoot their feet. I'm Din Djarin. All right. Ken, where can people find us?
Hey, thanks for listening to all of our Mando reports this season, especially those who hopped on the Force Center train. You can find us at the Force Center Pod on Twitter. Where are we? Instagram, YouTube. We're on Hive Social still if you're over there. Not super active, but we're there. You can support us there. Also, of course, on YouTube, subscribe over there to get other shows like Figure Fights, some shorts, live Q&As coming. All that's there. tpublic.com/user/Force Center is where you can get merch, including the Force Center Speculate Responsibly shirt, which Joseph was pointed out to me this morning by our listener, Mark Knope, is on a pirate t-shirt website. So there you go. Don't buy it from them. Buy it from us. But at least it has our brand name on it. Podcast available in a lot of different spots. Just search, you'll find us, and you can support us directly at patreon.com/Force Center. We're so close to our next goal of a Jennifer Landa reboot of Jedi Beeps. I would keep doing the Jedi Beat and Happy Beeps. I want it to be called Jedi Beeps so much. And that happens because of all of you. And support me if you want to at Cat Napzok or my website, catnapzok.com. Got some comedy coming up April 28th at Flappers in the Yoo Room. If you're local, come on out. Joseph, you.
Yeah, you can find me on all the social media right now, mostly Instagram, Twitter. I'm going to try to get back to Mastodon, but I'm also on TikTok and YouTube. I've started my not unboxing videos for some of the treasures that I procured at Star Wars Celebration and all over London, including a Luke Skywalker I got in Nottingham that is very close to my heart. So if you're interested in that, you can find me at Joseph Scrimshaw on all the social media, and Joseph Scrimshaw, just search for that name on YouTube as well. Yes, please do not purchase our t-shirts from Gorian Shard's pirate sites. Buy them directly from TeePublic. That is the Mandalorian thing to do. Honor, loyalty, character, t-shirts. That is the way to be a Mandalorian. Thank you all for joining us on this exciting journey. There is so much more to come, but for now, for myself, for Ken, for Din Grogu, Mandalorian apprentice, this has been the Mandalorian Report.